is Game of Thrones episode recaps.
Most people just watch the show. You'd rather have me ruin it for you. Season 3, Episode 1, Valar Dohaeris. A despairing Samwell Tarly is trudging through a blizzard north of the Wall when he runs into one of his brothers of the Night's Watch. The man's head has been chopped off. Suddenly, a wight rolls up on him with an axe, but Lord Commander Jeor Mormont shows up with the rest of the crew and lights the snow zombie on fire. Jeor almost bitch slaps Sam when he reveals that he failed to send the Raven south to warn the Wall of the incoming army. Uh-oh! In the words of Jeor, "Before winter's done, everyone you've ever known will be dead." A warrior with a skull face leads his band of wildlings, including the haughty redhead Ygritte and the captured Jon Snow, to the wildling camp, where there's a giant walking around hammering posts into the ground with his bare hands. Badass. They arrive at the tent of King Beyond the Wall, Mance Rayder. The man wasn't really the king. It was Tormund Giantsbane, pretending to be the king. Tormund, you joker. The real Mance Rayder comes out and says what's up. Jon Snow convinces them that he really does want to join the wildlings, because he didn't like when the man Craster fed one of his own incestuously conceived babies to a White Walker. That's just not how Jon Snow rolls. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Bronn is hanging out with a prostitute who's hanging out with her boobs hanging out. Podrick Payne interrupts Bronn just before he can take off her loincloth, which angers him. Tyrion says he needs Bronn right away, so Bronn puts his whore on ice and suits up. Elsewhere in King's Landing, Queen Cersei comes and visits her little brother Tyrion in his slummy tower bedroom. She asks why he's meeting with their father that day, and Tyrion's like, "Why can't I just hang out with Dad?" They recount a story of the time when Cersei had her guards beat a 9-year-old servant girl so badly that her eye fell out. Childhood memories. New scene. Davos wakes up on a rock in the middle of the ocean in dire need of face exfoliation. He signals a ship, they pick him up and take him back to the pirate Salador San. It's revealed that after the failed siege of King's Landing, the crazy red-headed witch bitch Melisandre burned a bunch of his men alive for saying that she sucked. In the next scene, Robb Stark and his boys roll up on the massive hole Castle Harrenhal and they find a whole lot of dead people. For some reason, Robb decides that a mass grave is a great place to set up camp. Later that day, Tywin Lannister meets with his son Tyrion, who asks for his rightful inheritance to the Lannister Playboy mansion of Casterly Rock. Tywin says no for 3 reasons. 1. Tyrion is a dwarf. 2. Tyrion is responsible for his mother's death. And 3. All Tyrion does is party and have sex with prostitutes. Nearby, Sansa and Tyrion's girlfriend Shae hang out while Sansa tries to play make-believe. Shae is not into it. Creepy-ass creeper Peter Littlefinger Baelish rolls up and Sansa asks him to get her the hell out of King's Landing. He says, "Yo, chill baby girl, I'm waiting for the right moment." Out on the narrow sea, Khaleesi's dragons are flying around her ship as she sails with her Dothraki followers, all of them puking everywhere. They're on their way to Astapor to buy a slave army. At Dragonstone, Davos shows up to find Stannis just sitting there all poopy pants and tries to convince him to stop moping and get his head back in the game. Melisandre gets catty. Davos gets pissed, but the guards stop him and he gets thrown in a cell. Failure. Back in the capital, little king bitch Joffrey is in his little royal safety box getting toted around the streets of King's Landing when the caravan suddenly stops, so his new girlfriend slash fiance Marjorie can get out and talk to a bunch of poor dirty orphan children who lost their dads in the battle, thus establishing that Marjorie is a poor fetishizing liberal nutjob. Later, Marjorie and her brother slash late husband's gay lover Loras join the queen and her son, King Joffrey Wrangler, for dinner, where Marjorie espouses a bunch of radical left-wing nonsense about how the poor deserve to be cared for, blah blah blah. The queen's not buying it, but Joffrey Master awkwardly defers to Marjorie with all his weird serial killer mannerisms. Meanwhile, Khaleesi and Jorah arrive in Astapor, where a badass slave trainer who speaks another language takes them on a tour of his slave army facilities, repeatedly referring to her as a whore. To demonstrate just how badass his slave soldiers are, the man takes out a knife and cuts off one of the soldiers' nipples. Dude doesn't flinch. "No big deal, you cut off my nipple." Then the slave trainer tells Khaleesi how his soldiers are forced to kill a slave baby to prove that they're crazy sociopathic killers. Khaleesi spots a little girl on the dock playing with a wooden ball. An evil magic scorpion comes out of the ball and tries to kill Khaleesi. A cloaked man kills the scorpion and saves her life. Then they look up at the little girl and her mouth is all blue like she just ate a blue raspberry blow pop. What the hell is happening? Who was this cloaked man? Well, it turns out to be Sir Barristan Selmy. He says, yeah, so I totally screwed up and let your whole family die. So I'd like to make it up to you by serving as your personal badass. And so it begins. Please subscribe to my channel and keep checking back for more Game of Thrones episode recaps. See you next week.